Welcome back to the Kiwi Wedding Podcast. My name is Lydia. I'm an Auckland wedding photographer at Lydia Rachel Photography and your host. This week I'm joined by Amelia, who shares her and Jack's beautiful love story and a marquee wedding in Mangawhai on private property with nearly 200 guests and such a special personal feel to the whole day. We get into everything from their slightly rocky first date that turned into something special to a dreamy Fiji proposal that almost got overshadowed by a stray cat called Chris. Amelia talks really honestly about planning a large-scale wedding, what goes into creating a marquee setup from scratch, and what it actually looks like when things don't go completely to plan, including torrential rain, humidity, and having to completely pivot the ceremony on the day. We also chat about one of her biggest priorities, making sure guests were well fed and having a great time with incredible food and that real focus on the overall experience. Something I really loved about this episode is her perspective, just focusing on what actually matters, letting go of the small details and truly embracing the moment. I know you guys are going to love this one. We didn't touch on it too much, but you may know Amelia or Mealy from Mealy's Kitchen, and she didn't ask me to do this, but I just wanted to give her a little plug. If you haven't come across her online before, she makes the most incredible, delicious recipes. I love scrolling through her Instagram and it just makes me really hungry. So if you're looking for something to make for dinner tonight, definitely go and check that out. One to follow for sure. All right, let's get into it. Enjoy episode 141 with Amelia. Hi, Amelia. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Excited to chat all about your wedding.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was an honour to be asked.
So good. So to start with, if we could just go back to a bit of the story of how you guys met and your life together.
Yes, so Jack and I met just at a party about 5 years ago, or maybe 6 years ago now, and we sort of knew of each other, but had never met in real life. And then we sort of came across each other at a party, and I remember thinking it was really lovely. And I asked my friend afterwards, I was like, who was that I was talking to? And she was like, oh, that was Jack Laity. And I was like, oh, gosh, he's so lovely. Anyway, and then my friend Izzy and her sister Millie, who were good friends of Jack's, then sort of set us up. And then we eventually ended up going on a date, and it was a terrible first date. And and then my sister-in-law Paige, who also knows Jack's family really well, was like, oh no, like don't write it off, he's really lovely. And then I was sort of like, oh, I just feel like it was really awkward. Anyway, and then we went on a couple more dates and hung out a bit more, and then the rest was history, really. And then I think we ended up sort of officially going out about a month later, so it didn't take very long at all. And have been together ever since.
So good. Bit of a lesson to push through, maybe more than one date, but yeah.
I know.
I
always say that to my friends that go on dates. They're like, oh no, it was terrible. I'm like, well, just wait. They might be the love of your life. You never know.
Oh, so good. So then together for quite a while and got engaged. Can you tell us a bit about your proposal story?
Yes. So we were in, Jack's parents have a place in Fiji, which is so lucky and so amazing. And so we had gone there after New Year's for about 10 days for just a bit of a summer holiday. And I was actually being a real brat about it, and I had quite a bit of work on. And so I was like, oh gosh, do we have to go for 10 days? And was sort of kicking up a stink, which seems so ungrateful. But anyway, ended up being that we got engaged. So it's very good that I ended up going. So it was our anniversary on the 14th of January, and we'd sort of planned on booking a night away at, a hotel or on one of the islands somewhere. And I'm so oblivious to everything, and I just had absolutely no idea. And so it was sort of quite unlike Jack to want to book a night away at a hotel somewhere, but I still just didn't really click. And then so I'd booked this hotel, and it was super expensive, and we'd never normally splash on stuff like that. So it was really special. But Anyway, we'd had a couple nights at Nakula Island in up by sort of where the Blue Lagoon is, and I had fallen in love with this stray cat that we called Chris after Chris Martin. And I was so devastated about leaving this cat behind on the island. And I was sort of like looking up about how to adopt cats and bring them back to New Zealand anyway. And so I was just like hysterically crying, leaving this cat behind, and almost ruined the whole thing. Obviously, still had no idea he was about to propose. And then we went straight from Nakula Island to the resort where we were staying for the night. And Jack was like, "Oh, we can't pull up. They don't have a mooring ready for us yet, so we'll just stop and have a swim." So we stopped and had a swim, and then we were sitting on the back of the boat, and Jack sort of turned to me and, oh gosh, it's all a blur. I can't really remember what he said, but just sort of said, you're the love of my life type thing. And I still had no idea anyway. And then all of a sudden he gets down on one knee, and it was like, so it was just so beautiful. It was such a beautiful day in this crystal clear water, and it was very, very special. And it's funny, I think it took me about 2 weeks to actually comprehend what had happened, because it was just all such a shock. And my sister had just got engaged the week before, so it just was not on my radar whatsoever. So yeah, he did a very good job. It was very special, and I almost ruined it by being so distraught about the stray cat, Chris. But anyway.
I love that. Definitely got the surprise factor then.
Yeah, it was honestly, it couldn't have been more beautiful. He did a very good job. Oh, and then we got back to Jack's parents' place, and we were walking up the jetty, and then my mum and dad appeared, and they'd surprised us by coming to Fiji, because obviously they knew what was happening. So yeah, it was very, very special.
So cool. Love that. So special you got to go through that bridal era with your sister as well,
I
being engaged
know,
so close together.
I
Yeah.
know, it was very cool, very, very cool.
Had you been one of those girls that dreamed about your wedding? Did you have like a vision in mind what you wanted? Where did you kind of start with planning, finding a venue, all that?
Yeah, I don't think I ever really, I always dreamed about having babies and having kids and being a mum, but I never really dreamed about my wedding day. So yeah, when we started planning, I did really enjoy the process, but yeah, I didn't have any sort of ideas for my dress or anything like that. Jack's parents have a place up in Mangawhai, and it has this beautiful big lawn out the front, and we always sort of had said, oh, it would be so special if we could get married here, because it's sort of the perfect house for it to host a wedding with that big lawn, because it's just like there's like this perfect location where a marquee is just meant to go anyway. And so we'd always thought about getting married there, and so we did, which was, yeah, again, very special, and very lucky to have had the opportunity to do it at a family home and have those memories there. So yeah, we basically booked the date, and Jack wanted to wait until 2027, and I was like, absolutely not. Getting married in a year, no later, because we were sort of at that age where I could feel like everyone was going to start getting engaged soon, and I was sort of like, it'll be quite nice to try and get it done before our wedding is one of 10 in a row, which is nothing wrong with that, but so I'm glad we did do it this year.
So special to have that family property as well, and like,
I
yeah,
know.
unique.
Yeah, I feel very, very grateful and very lucky to have, just like now, every time we go there and stay there, it's like so special to have our wedding memories there. And very, very kind of Jack's parents to let us do it there, because the lawn was immaculate and then it just got completely trampled. So
Oh, so good. Definitely a lot of work doing it that way, but yeah, special
yes.
too.
I know, I had no idea. And I was in my head, I was like, oh, we'll save all this money, like doing a wedding, at our own location and all that type of stuff. And I was so wrong. And I think it is actually very much a lot cheaper to do it at a venue. But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. What were the most important elements of the day for you, your kind of top priorities?
Honestly, just that everyone had enough food, had enough booze, and was having a good time. I definitely loved like the little, being like an arty creative person. I loved like the menus and doing all that stuff and the table decorations. But yeah, at the end of the day, it definitely got to that point. Like, don't get me wrong, I loved doing all the details and planning that stuff, but it got to the point where I was like, I just don't care anymore. As long as everyone has a good time, that's all I care about. So yeah, the dress, getting the dress, that was pretty special. And I love that process and taking your mum and your sister and your bridesmaids in to try it on and like the evolution of it, trying it on, getting it fitted, all that type of stuff. But yeah, I'd say I definitely loved the doing the menus and the table decorations the most. And yeah, everything else is sort of, especially when you're doing it at your own venue and hiring everything, especially because we had such a big wedding. There's only so much you can control in that respect. Like, because we had 200 people or 192 people, there's only like one or two higher places that will have enough plates. So there wasn't a lot of like bespoke selection in that respect. So, but yeah.
Oh, so good. Yeah, that was my next question, kind of about your dress and yeah, how you found that whole process. Do you want to go into that a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah, so I got my dress from Hera Couture in Auckland, and they were so amazing. And because my sister and I had gotten engaged so close together, we'd planned to do a trip weekend away to Sydney to sort of do some sorry, not bridesmaids, bride shopping and wedding dress trying on. And Emily actually my sister got her dress from a place in Sydney, but I just found everything I tried on looked so terrible on me, and I kept thinking, oh, it's because they're made for tall, slim Bondi beach gals, and so none of them fitted properly. And then I had one appointment at Hera before we left, and I tried on my dress that I ended up getting, and we really loved it. And it was sort of like, oh, we'll go to Sydney and see what there is, and then sort of confirm if we'll go for the Hera dress or not. Anyway, and so I came back from Sydney being like, oh my gosh, like that was definitely the dress. And what I did find with Hera was, yeah, someone that's, not a stick and, has curves and all that type of stuff. The Hera dresses were definitely the most flattering by a long mile. Like all of them just made you look the best you could possibly look. And that was something that really stood out for me with them. So I would definitely recommend. And the girls there were amazing. And yeah, I just loved. I mean, the whole process was pretty seamless, to be honest. I didn't have any mares, but my sister did. Oh my gosh! So Emily got her dressed
To get
from
her on as well.
yeah. So I'd had that. We'd gone through that whole mare with my sister, and then so it was just. I felt very lucky that we had no issues. But yeah, she had to get a dress. It was coming from I think the Netherlands or something, and they did the wrong size twice. Anyway, the whole thing was a nightmare. So
Oh.
yeah, very lucky to not have any mares.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Yeah, Hera's amazing and all the girls there, yeah, look after you so well. So it's nice. You had a great process.
I know. It's crazy to think that like yeah, that was like I think it was the third dress I'd tried on at my first fitting, and that ended up being the dress I got after, trying on so many other ones. It was like it's that one all along.
Meant to be. Yeah, so good. And did you have a bridal party as well? And did you find that quite easy choosing them?
Yes, so I had 6 bridesmaids. So I had my 3 oldest friends, Lily, Charlotte, and Imogen, who have been my best friends since we were, I've actually known Charlotte basically since I was born. And then the other 2, we all became best friends when we were about year 7 or even earlier, that like year 4 or something crazy. So that was super special. And especially after being separated, Imo moving to Sydney and Charlotte moving to London, it was so cool to have everyone back together again after having been friends for 20 years. That was a very full circle moment. And then I also had my other 2 good friends who I became friends with sort of later, last year of school, uni years, Annabelle and Maddie. So yeah, it was sort of, Jack and I were sort of umming and ahhing having maybe just have 2 or 3 bridesmaids and groomsmen, but I was like, oh, I can't have one and not the 6. It's all or nothing. So yeah, I'm glad I ended up doing that. And I think a lot of people were like, whoa, that's so many. And I was like, I just wouldn't have changed it for a thing. And then Jack had, I think, 5 groomsmen. So we didn't have an even number, which people were also like, oh, you have to have an even number. It did not matter whatsoever.
Yeah. And yeah, you mentioned having like a relatively large guest list. How did you go with that process? Was that quite tricky to narrow down?
Yes and no. I think we always knew we were going to have a big wedding, just because Jack and I both come from big families and, have quite big social groups of friends. And my sister had a very small, sort of quite family, very close friend wedding. So I was like, oh, we'll take one for the team and have a big fat wedding. I mean, it was really great. I think it's so beautiful having that small wedding with only like 30 people. If I could go back in time, maybe I would. There was something very special about that, but having the big wedding with everyone in your life that you just love, having it all in one place is, wouldn't change that for a thing. But I just started basically going through who I followed on Instagram on my personal account, and I just went through it like that, and I was like, because it's quite hard, you're just so easy to miss people. So I actually found that was quite a good way to just get a list going and then sort of refining it from there. But yeah, I mean, there was definitely people we would have wanted to have had and couldn't, but I felt like most of, with the wedding that big, you do have most of the people there that you want to. So yeah.
Yeah, so good and nice. You wouldn't have had so much of a limit doing it on private
No.
properties. A lot of venues have kind of like a cap.
Yes,
So yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it does obviously just the only thing was the cost. Like, I think when you're having that many people, it just means that you then can't spend money on, I don't know, other just little details and that type of stuff because then you have to times that by 200. So, I mean, it's a bit of give and take, but I definitely loved having the big wedding.
Can you tell us a bit about the big day, maybe the little bit of the lead up to it, and yeah, just a rundown of how it all went, any highlights, favorite moments, challenges? Yeah.
So I think we got, the wedding was on Friday, Friday the 13th, which was quite funny. And my sister got married on Halloween, so very classic dates.
Love it.
But, but yeah, I remember Jack's sister. It was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're getting married on Friday the 13th. And Jack and I were like, oh, we're not superstitious. Like, won't matter at all. Anyway, so we got to Mangawhai on, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, and Lucy's event hire came with the Marquee and started setting up, and sort of everything was just slowly being dropped off over those couple of days, and that was actually quite fun having all the bridesmaids and family and groomsmen there helping. It was pretty fun. And then on Thursday the weather started really packing in, so that was sort of, I think the stress then started picking up a bit. And we'd sort of talked about a wet weather plan if it was going to rain, but we sort of never really thought about it because it was in the middle of February and we thought we'd be pretty safe. Anywho, so the weather really started packing in and we were checking the weather forecast and sort of trying to figure out what we would do if it is going to be raining for the ceremony, because we'd had the idea of it's, walking out and doing it on their big beautiful lawn right by the water edge, and would have been perfect anyway. And I think people was, everyone was sort of in a bit of denial about the fact that it was going to rain. And I'm normally the very irrational, like non-logical person, and I would say Jack is definitely the more logical, rational one, but he was being like, no, it will be fine. So I was like, okay, it's going to be fine then, because I normally trust him anyway. And so we were all sort of in denial. We're like, no, it'll be all good. It'll be all good. So we then didn't end up doing a proper wet weather plan, I'd say, which was one thing I think we'd all go back and change if we could. But again, wouldn't change a thing. It was the most special day. Anyway, so we then went off to the bridesmaid's house and, did our face masks and got ready and did all that jazz and opened a few little presents and read out cards, and that was really lovely. And then my brother and my sister came over and we just spent like an hour together just talking about memories and all that type of stuff, which was very impromptu, but yeah, you're just so full of like love and nostalgia and all those emotions. So yeah, that night before was pretty special. Anyway, and then I had also said, I'm not going to drink the night before because I don't want a puffy face and I don't want to be hungover. Anyway, I think with all the stress of the weather and everything, I was just like, oh, bugger it. Basically had a whole bottle of champagne to myself the night before, which is quite funny, but also fun. And we were all in our PJs, having one big sleepover. Actually, I'm glad I did that because I ended up having a good night's sleep. So we woke up the next day and got ready with all the gals, and we had this amazing girl, Ray, Sasha, doing our makeup, and then Penton and Co doing the hair, and that was super fun as well. We had the music blaring and was sort of, I'd gotten over the weather at that point and I'd sort of accepted it and moved on. Then we were all ready to go, and Dad was picking us up to take us to the venue of the wedding anyway, and he hadn't arrived, and the wedding was meant to be at 3 p.m. Or was it 2:30? Anyway, and Dad hadn't arrived, and so Mum's calling Dad, being, "Where the hell are you?" And he was like, "Oh, the wedding's been postponed for half an hour." And we were like, "Well, thanks for telling us." Anyway, because it was, pissing down with rain at this point, and Mum, me, and my sister went outside for a photo, and it was sort of very grey, and the humidity was crazy, and all of a sudden there was this big crack of thunder above us, and I just remember we all looked at each other and we were just like, "You've got to be joking." Like, this just can't be happening. Then went back inside. The wedding, they just kept pushing out the ceremony for like half an hour, just hoping that the rain would pass, and it didn't. So, anywho, we ended up then doing the ceremony in the Marquee, which was, I think we'd sort of said we wouldn't do that if it was raining because we didn't want all the table settings and everything to get messed up, but it ended up being the best option. So when I sort of arrived there, I wasn't really sure because we'd rehearsed something totally different to what happened. So, and I think at that point, all the wheels had come off, and I just definitely got to the point where I was like, "Look, I actually don't care anymore. Just want to get down that aisle and marry Jack." And I think as someone who isn't, I'm don't really, I was never too fussed about having the perfect wedding and having it all organized and rehearsed and all that type of thing. So I wasn't too phased, and the whole thing was so special anyway. But yeah, there was definitely arriving at the house and not knowing what you're doing, where you're walking, and what's happening. It was all kind of added to the excitement and the fun of it. Anyway, so we then were all, under umbrellas and walking to the Marquee, and everyone's hair was crazy because it was so humid. And I think all in all, like, if we'd had the most perfect weather, that would have been amazing. But I think because it was so chaotic and the rain was so crazy, everyone's hair looked terrible, and, all the makeup was coming off, at that everyone sort of stopped caring. And I think we actually ended up having more fun because of that, because, everyone just stopped caring what they looked like and all that type of stuff. And it was ended up being so much fun. So wasn't the perfect thing that, wedding that we'd hoped for, but it was so much fun, and I actually wouldn't change it because I think it made it better in a way, and probably more me, someone that's a bit crazy and, you know, just yeah, yeah. So anyway, I think there's something about, not when a wedding feels too rehearsed and perfect, it almost can feel a little bit contrived. So I think it was kind of nice that it didn't end up feeling, and everyone was like cheering me down the aisle instead of, being silent. And so there was a whole lot of camaraderie that came with it. That was super cool. Yeah, so we were lucky enough we got a break in the rain to take photos, which was, I don't know what we would have done if we didn't get that actually. So that was like a miracle. And we went all around the property basically. And Jack's mum had this amazing, beautiful garden that she'd been working on. So we got heaps of photos in the garden around the hydrangeas and all the dahlias and zinnias, and it looked so beautiful. So we were really lucky to get that break in the rain. And I think people always say that overcast day is better for photos anyway. So I actually haven't got all the photos back yet, but the sample ones we got given look so cool. So, and then we walked down the jetty, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so, it's going to fall off the jetty. But they did it, and it was great. We got some epic photos there, and then came back and just got straight into speeches and dinner. Had the most delicious food from a place called The Source based in Matakana. And it was such yummy food, and yeah, I was just so blown away by the speeches. Actually, that was one thing that I was obviously looking forward to, but I wanted it to be a surprise, so I hadn't heard anyone's speeches. And then just was blown away how amazing everyone spoke. And yeah, that was very cool. And then we sort of almost forgot to do the cake cutting, but we then remembered last minute. I think the wedding coordinator was like, "You guys need to come and cut your cake," and we were like, "Oh, sorry," and did the cake cutting, and that was lovely. And then I changed into my little party dress, and then yeah, just danced the night away. Basically, it was lots of fun.
So good. Sounds like such an epic day, despite all the weather drama. Turned out amazing.
Yeah.
You've kind of probably already answered this, but what did you find the hardest part, or even just like of the wedding planning? And is there anything you look back on and regret or would have done a little differently?
I think the one thing would be just to have a better wet weather plan, only because even though it all turned out perfectly and we had the most amazing day, I think it just would have taken a lot of stress off, because as the girls, we'd all left and were back at our house getting ready. So we actually weren't there in the morning of, helping get it all set up and that type of thing. And I know there was a sort of like a village of people, helping out on that morning of. And so like I felt really bad because I was like, I want Jack's parents to be enjoying themselves and not having to like rush around and, trying to make a different plan. So yeah, I think we all would do that differently. But other than that, I just had the best day. I just think, not as like a sob story, but my mum's sister sadly passed away about 6 months before my mum got married. And I think my sister and I had always remained very chill brides in that respect because we've always sort of thought, you can get all wound up in the details and the little bits and get really wound up and become this bridezilla. But it's like at the end of the day, all that matters is that your family is there, all your friends are there, happy, healthy, having a good time. Like that's actually all that matters at the end of the day. And, it would have, something really horrific like that would have to happen to actually matter and impact the day. It's like a little thing like the rain. It doesn't actually matter. So I think it was sort of like a good mentality to have, I think, because it meant that I really enjoyed myself because I wasn't stressed about all the perfect little details and instead was just like, oh, don't worry about it. So,
No,
yeah.
such a good perspective to have. And yeah, just embrace whatever happens. There's so many things you can't control when it comes to the actual day. So
Oh,
yeah,
exactly. And I think at the you're just going to end up not having a good time if those things get to you. So I know it's a hard
yeah.
thing to say. Just don't worry about it. But honestly, that was the best thing I think was just not caring and just being like, I'm married, love my life, got all my family and friends there. That's the only part that matters.
Did you guys have a set wedding budget or how you found that whole side of things?
We did have a set budget and we definitely went over the budget. And a lot of that was just food and beverage for such a large amount of people. But other than that, I feel like we just were pretty good. Like if we were planning for certain details and it wasn't going to work within the budget, we were just like, oh, it's not essential, let's scrap it.
With that amount of guest list, that's obviously going to come with a bit more of a cost, and then maybe compromising in other areas or saving on other things.
Yeah, totally. Definitely, I would say that doing a wedding at your own venue, there's just so many things that you just don't think about, like, I don't know, just
Basically
holding your
building from scratch,
yeah,
like
and
building almost.
it really does add up. Just by the time you've got nice forks and dessert plates and napkins and I don't know, just random stuff like a generator and a portable chiller. It's like never ends.
Did you guys go on honeymoon straight away, or what did planning that look like?
No, so our honeymoon is at the end of April, and we're going to Sri Lanka for Jack's rugby, and then just like an under 85 tour. So he's doing that again this year. So I'm going to go watch the last game, and then we're going to head on to London, catch up with some friends and family, and then train to Paris, and then hire a car and drive down to the south of France and do about a week in Provence, and then head to Italy and then do another little tour around Italy. But I've never travelled to or done like a proper Europe away or anything like that. So I'm very excited.
Oh, that's so exciting. Cool to have something to look forward to a little bit
Yeah,
after your wedding as well. And yeah, you'll absolutely love it. Such cool places to go to.
yeah. But we've literally only just started booking it all. So I think we sort of thought we'd do it, 6 months ago, but then I was so busy with the wedding, and now I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's like on
Yes,
to the next project. Yeah. Did you have any sort of helpful resources you used during wedding planning in terms of finding inspiration or your vendors, stuff like that?
I think love Pinterest, so I just did a lot of Pinterest mood boarding and stuff just for fun, but that is actually doesn't end up helping that much because it's all different to what you can get in New Zealand anyway. My friend Charlotte, who was one of my bridesmaids, she'd just been to a wedding the year before and been a bridesmaid for that wedding, and it was sort of a similar setup at a friend's house. At her friend's parents' house, and had done the whole hire a marquee thing. So she had sort of been like, you need to hire a generator, you need to get a portable chiller for the flowers and the alcohol. And that was really helpful because I would have had absolutely no idea otherwise. So I basically just made a spreadsheet from there and chucked a list down, and then it sort of just grew and grew. But yeah, I didn't really have any other sort of planning help or anything like that. I think I just made a big list and just slowly tick stuff off it. And then we had a wedding coordinator for the day of Sophie Pollard, who was fantastic. And that is like a must. 100% was a must. But yeah, I sort of managed without a planner, which was good because it's sort of quite fun when I don't know, depends what kind of person you are, but I really enjoyed organising and that type of thing. But if you're super busy and have got a hectic job or whatever, then I would say a plan is definitely, the way to go. But yeah, I quite enjoyed being across all the details, and we sort of put all the big stuff in at the start, like the caterer and the marquee hire and all those things, and then just left all the fun stuff, like all the little menus and that type of thing, for later down the track. So it was quite funny coming back to it like 6 months later, and I was like, oh god, I can't remember like what I've booked.
Yeah.
Like, have I got napkins? I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely, I'd just say, I mean, again, person dependent, but just having a good spreadsheet and just chucking everything in there and then sharing it with everyone so everyone can see it. That was how we did
Yeah, so good. Love that. And yeah, super helpful and important having that on the day coordinator to just like execute it all so you can enjoy it.
it.
But
100%.
yeah, so
I
good.
felt really bad for her though, because everything had sort of gone tits up. And she
Feel like
probably,
that's their talent though, pivoting, making it happen. Yeah.
so I think it probably would have been more stressful than other weddings for her, but I think I mean, it all worked out in the end. But yeah, I don't think we could have done it without her, for sure.
So good. You've given some amazing advice and insight already, but is there anything else you would say to a couple planning their wedding at the moment?
Yeah, I guess just don't worry about the small details and just enjoy yourself. I think probably most people would say that, but once I think, especially this day and age, it's this whole like you're almost planning your wedding for the Instagram post that you're going to do, and it's like it actually, it doesn't matter. And at the end of the day, you're marrying the love of your life, and you know, people don't, as a guest, you just notice so much less, and you're just there getting drunk, having a good time, and no one notices the little tiny details that you would otherwise get hung up on. So just don't get hung up on them, even though it's easier said than done.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Great advice. And you're pretty fresh still, but how was married life? And yeah, do you feel like you got any of those post-wedding blues?
Yeah, definitely the week, like the 2 weeks after, I think, because you're planning it for like a year, and then it's all over and done within like 48 hours. And it's like, oh, so sorry, advice, if you can, I would definitely do a day after. That was like having the 2 days was, I'm so glad we did, because just the one day is just not enough. And I know not everyone can do that, or, you might not have the space to do it. But if you do, definitely, and you're sort of questioning whether to do it day after or not, I would definitely do it. It was the most fun I've ever had in my life. Because you're on such a high from your wedding, and then it's just, so much fun. Yeah, it's been lovely. Nothing's changed really. I feel like Jack and I sort of feel like an old married couple from the get go. So yeah, nothing's really changed. We're just enjoying being married and planning our honeymoon, and yeah.
Oh, so good. Love that. Yeah, I love the advice about doing multi-day celebrations if you can, especially if you have quite like a high number of guests, then more chance to kind of chat to everyone and catch up properly, and yeah, just extend the celebration a little bit.
Because we originally weren't going to, and then Jack really pushed for it. I wasn't like that phase, but Jack really pushed for a day after, and I'm so glad he did, because that just, yeah, it honestly, the whole thing could have been a 5 day long celebration. Like, it still wouldn't have been enough time. And I know my friends who had traveled, from all over the world to come back for this wedding, which I was so, grateful for. I think it's nice to then get that extra time with them as well.
Amazing. That's all my questions. So lovely to chat to you today. Is there anything else that we missed or you want to add as we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. Sorry, it's probably not very helpful. All I said was, don't
No,
worry about it.
I
All
know
right.
it's different personality types, I guess. But yeah, if you like struggle, then it's like hire more people to help or delegate out if you don't enjoy that whole like planning or admin and stuff. So everyone's different. But yeah, it's so cool to hear your perspective, and then just yeah, how it all went. I think there was definitely a few brides over this season that were contending with some crazy weather, which you can never predict, but yeah.
The humidity, like, in some ways, it almost couldn't have been worse, because it was like torrential rain, so humid and so hot. Like, it was so hot. And that, but then, it definitely can always be worse, because it could have been a cyclone, and, with helping have been cancelled. But yeah, it was the humidity. I just couldn't, how humid it was. It was awful.
Crazy. Yeah, your photos look gorgeous from what I've seen though, and just yeah, all worked out. So,
Well, I was going to do an out hairstyle, because I've always just worn my hair out and curled. And thank God I didn't, because yeah, it was having the slick back, bun, which I did, and a lot of the bridesmaids did. That was definitely the way to go. Honestly, even if it's not humid, just it was so easy not having to worry about it. It's just perfect the whole night. So that's actually another recommendation. Do the updo with all the spray and the gel.
yeah, I think just even being open to pivoting to that, because
Yeah.
even if you have wind, that can just ruin your hair, or yeah, humidity.
And just
So
trying to always brush it out of your face. Yeah.
yeah, totally. So good. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.